I don't know if I'll make it through. I wasn't going to say anything. My kids don't get their fearless ability to perform on stage from me. It's like not even in my comfort zone at all. I want to be down by Ethan. But I couldn't sleep. So at 4 a.m. I wrote this. It's not even going to make sense. Probably a lot of it's the same, but I have to do it for Cameron. Brian talked about how when he was little, he was shy. If you know him now, you might not know that because, he goes out and he commands that stage, but he was the kid that cried at preschool and held onto my leg and wouldn't let me leave. But once he got into theater, it gave him this confidence that I think he wouldn't have had otherwise. It gave him the confidence to be in front of people and to do hard things and so many more things. But that doesn't mean he always loved the spotlight. He could go on center stage and shine like no other. But in a normal everyday group setting, he didn't necessarily want to be the center of attention. Don't tell Jungle Cruise it's his birthday, right, Asper? He'll throw you over the edge. He didn't want you to sing to him in a restaurant, anything like that. But I think sometimes it depended on who he was with. I think if he were with all the friends that he knew and loved, I think he was always the life of the party. So he just was so humble. I don't know. He loved theater so much, every aspect of it. He wanted to learn everything. He worked at Hale Sandy as an usher for a while, and then he decided he needed a new challenge. So he joined the deck crew and worked behind, is that what it's called? The deck crew? He worked behind the scenes on a couple shows. He just wanted to know every aspect of theater. He's had the incredible opportunity in the last couple of years to perform at Sierra, Lehigh Arts, West Valley, Sundance, and most recently Hale Orem. And he felt so lucky to be able to perform in the last show on that little stage that he grew up watching shows. He grew up doing youth shows. It just felt like a second home to him. And he felt so lucky that he got to perform in the last show there. He loved every experience he had at every one of those theaters. And he would come home and tell me about all the people he was meeting. And he just loved everybody that he worked with behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, wherever. He just loved them all. And he just loved doing it. And whenever he would perform, I would gush about what an amazing performer he was. And what natural instinct he had in different roles. And I said, he was always able to capture the exact emotion of a scene. And he would shrug me off and be like, "You're just my mom." He's like, "You have to say that, you're my mom." But then others would take the time to also commend him. And I hope that it was validating to him to know that I wasn't the only one that thought that. I would go to as many shows of his as I could justify buying the tickets for. And I would watch him afterward. And many times strangers that didn't know us would seek him out to come tell him, "Good job." And he would always give a very humble thank you and a genuine thank you for coming. And he just was, but I would see his little smirk that he does. I knew it meant a lot that they recognized him and that all his hard work, he worked so hard. This kid worked so hard. All his hard work is paying off. And sometimes I wondered if he believed what they were saying, but I think he did. I think he believed them because it was paying off. But as much as he loved theater, he had other interests as well. He loved, like Ryan said, or I don't know, one of my kids said, he loved music. He loved movies. He was always so excited to share his favorite artists with us all. He loved sharing his love of music with me, with his brothers. He loved going to concerts, and he saw so many of his favorite artists live in concert. He even went to 21 Pilots recently, and he wanted to buy the $400 pit ticket. He wanted to be right there up front. And all his friends were like, "We're not spending that much money." So he went alone. And then he came back and he showed us videos of how he was so close, he could touch him. And he was just so proud of that. And he was so excited to share that with his brothers. And one of their favorite bands that they share love of is AJR. And a year ago, they were coming in concert last year and he knew that. And so he's like, "Mom, this would be the greatest present. Get them AJR tickets." So I did. And Cameron planned this whole elaborate scavenger hunt for them to open up their present on Christmas Eve. And he just went through every detail. And he just took over, and he was so excited when they opened that present, and it was like their highlight of that Christmas. He always wanted to share what he loved with all of us so we could love it too. He was always going to movies and always asking who wanted to come with him. When the Harry Potter movies came back to theaters recently, like Megaplex was showing all the old Harry Potters, he's like, we're going as a family, we're going to go see all 8 of them. And so he did. He would find the times and he'd plan and he'd put on the group chat, here's the times, who can go when, and he would make it happen. And not every person made it to every movie, but most of us made it to most of them. And he'd even agreed to go to the Twilight movies with me this month because nobody else wants to. We've talked about what a hard worker he was. As soon as he got fired from Wendy's, he went and got a job at Chick-fil-A. And I think he was 15 when he got hired there. And I think the perk of getting a free meal when he worked was better than the paycheck. And then he simultaneously got a job at Hale Sandy. So during high school, he worked at both Chick-fil-A and Hale Sandy. And I said, Cameron, you don't have to have 2 jobs. Like, you just need to pay for your gas. But he loved it. He didn't want to quit either of them. And so he worked both through most of high school. And then he eventually quit Chick-fil-A and he was just working at Hale Sandy, but he loved it. He loved it. He loved the people there. He loved seeing the shows, and they'd give the ushers the opportunity to buy the show shirts, and he always had them, and that's what he wore. And he worked everywhere at Hale Sandy. He was an usher, he did decor. I think he even did a short stint in the box office. He just wanted to learn everything, every aspect of theater. He was willingly helpful to me in so many ways. I could ask him for favors and he never, ever acted put out by it. Like when Gavin said he drove him to Voice that one day, that wasn't like uncommon. I could just call him up and be like, Cameron, I'm double booked. Can you come drive your brother to Voice? And he'd be like, sure, I'll be right over. He drove Ethan's basketball carpool a time or two. He just, no problem, no hesitation. And he did just drop me off Chick-fil-A cookies and Diet Cokes. He'd call us and be like, does anybody want anything from Chick-fil-A? And I'd be like, I don't want anything. He'd bring me one anyway. He knew I'd eat it. I'm not sure if he knew how much my whole inside lit up when he would come over, or when I'd come home from something and he'd be home. He would occasionally bring friends over to Hot Tub and watch movies. And each time I told him, you don't bring your friends over enough. Come over. You guys are welcome here whenever you want. And I loved having them at our home. And as Gavin gets older, his voice sounds more and more like Cameron every day. And sometimes Gavin would be talking to someone out in the kitchen, just, I mean, anytime recently, and I'll run out there and be like, is Cameron home? And I just loved when he would come over. He just makes the house so fun. He'd always bring a little speaker out on when we'd go Hot Tub. He always had to have music, but he had different playlists for different things. So when we were in the hot tub, it was always jazz. We listened to like smooth jazz because, you know, we're like relaxing. So I've always felt really protective of my Cameron. He often put on a tough exterior, but he's really just a sensitive, tender soul underneath. And I always wanted people to see and understand him and recognize how awesome he was. And people who knew Cameron and took the time to get to know him, they knew that he was just incredibly awesome. He didn't want it to end this way. He was scared. He didn't know how to let people in and get the help he so desperately needed. Just a week ago, I texted him and said, Cameron, I am here. You do not have to do this alone. He thought it was too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. Stay on the phone, Cameron. I'm coming. I love you.